topic tonight. We will be hosting a series of Pride topics. And tonight we felt that we need to discuss decolonization because we're hearing the word used a lot, especially during our Pride celebrations, gearing up to our Pride celebrations. So we want to have an understanding of what is decolonization, and that when we say Pride is decolonization, we want to have a firm understanding of what that is. So we're going to turn it over to Erin, who will be our host for tonight, who will lead us in this discussion as it relates to decolonization. Let's welcome Erin Greene as they present on decolonization.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm Erin Greene, and I just recently joined the Pride Committee, and like Alexus said, I think it's important, we think important to pull this decolonization because this will be a part of the discussions for Pride. And so, yeah, so let's have a talk about what colonization is, the familiar terms, colonization, and let's explore what pride is decolonization can mean or does mean for us studying and people that will be participating in this year's Pride celebration, the rebirth of Pride in the Bahamas. So I think we have a conversation this evening, and I guess to start off and attempt to, I guess, frame the conversation, leave my perspective, and throw some questions out there and some examples out. But I think it's really a conversation about what decolonization means and how we possibly talk about it during the Pride events and through the work of the Pride organizing committee. So Ide and Natino not here yet.
Ide is here, yes.
Yes, I don't really want to give academic presentation. I just throw some ideas out. So colonization is a process of settling among and establishing control over the indigenous people in the area. Colonization is dehumanizing, and it is policing our bodies. Decolonization is the process in which colonies become independent of the colonized country. And like a little brief rundown of how of Bahamas' process to decolonization, extends depth and given up. So the first inhabitants of the islands arrived from the Caribbean roughly between 500 and 800 AD. Some people say were Lucans, and then people say the Lions don't really say so, but just about the indigenous people, right? So these first peoples of these islands came here 500, 800 AD. And then voted in 1990, Columbus came and Talberchi, the higher population. And Faro family came to Bahamas in 1689, but no real settlement took place until the 1640s when the Trinidadians came. Now, the Trinidadians, the first settlers that arrived came in 1780. Right? And that's when we had the first example of, the second example of racism in these islands. I like to call it one white pride. So it's the Congo. A lot of say that the term Congo means or meant a person mixed race. Like you're mainly white, but like the Congo literally see you black, and right, so you mix race. But The term Kijo has its origin way back in 1783 when for loyalists arrived here. So when they met the Lutheran adventurers, they needed a way, or decided they needed a way to privilege themselves against the people met here, adventurers. So they created a hierarchy of power.
Right.
So they all those people conquerors because they predominantly conquer, right? That's they industry, and they're the dark own skin business experience. And so that's where the term conquer comes from, right? A lot of people think that it's a racist slur towards Hindus who are being a typical white or dominant white, right? But it's actually so like a slur created by the loyalists way back then
Right.
to privilege themselves against the white people.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there was
And
the era of
they-
racial, white hierarchy
and so
that existed. Mhm.
so I thought the bird people think it's a slur created by us, by men, or dark men towards light skins. But that may be how it operates some now, that it's how it originated. And then, of course, we fast forward to majority rule in 1967, and then independence in 1970, where we would withdrawn right from the cleansing seat. We've been in the 1973 process of colonization and go across the collect on
Hi,
tasks
Erin.
that would be must go individually.
Hi, Erin. You're breaking up a little. I don't know if you're close to a Wi-Fi, but it's breaking up as you speak.
It's Cable Bahamas. I'm sitting right next to my my device.
We can hear you better now.
Okay, cool. So even though we became an independent state in 1973, right, and we learned to tackle tension, the process is it's not an task that we take on individually. Decolonization is not legal or legal process. It is a psychological process, a spiritual process. It requires both intellectual and cultural shift. Decolonization requires us to learn everything we were during slavery and colonialization, and we became a post-colonial, a post-independence. Pride is the courage to be visible, but the courage to find ourselves on our own terms. Not just to fulfill our dreams, but to vision and realize lives we had never imagined would be possible. Colonization is why you lack or African descent, but you are discriminated against, oppressed, or totally or partially marginalized where a natural hate. Colonization is why you're not taught by men in school. And colonization is found in medicine in midst of major crises. Right? Decolonization teaches us to hate or to fear or to slay. That's a inherent inner or natural part of our. Get questions. We will forget it. I want to tell three stories about decolonization and how it operates in Bahamas. So a few years ago, there was this donor, like a film meeting, the original organization, and the donors from a organization, and we have a conversation where we're about to do a little creating. And he's to me, you're the Bahamas. I know, I hear Bahamas up selling of the islands, almost lost time. So I said to him,
Hold on one second.
what?
1 second. Are y'all still getting the break-in?
Yeah, it's breaking up a lot.
Okay, so Erin, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let Ide reiterate what you're saying until we can try to get a better connection with you. But I'll let Ide just reiterate what you're saying for us because it's breaking up. Go ahead, Ide.
Okay.
Okay. Well, for those who had difficulty, what Erin really talking about is the idea of decolonization and where it begins. She mentioned the 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 history of the Haitian word "conky Joe" and where that came from, and the historical context of what that means in our space. And basically, it was about how it was implemented by the white loyalists when they came in to describe the poor whites who already lived in the Bahamas, and in some way creating a class and a race hierarchy in place. And that's part of the colonial process of creating hierarchies of power and privilege in a society where people at the top can benefit and those at the bottom benefit less or don't at all. And for a country like the Bahamas, knowing our history of being, a former colony of the British, us moving through a long history of oppression and uprising and fighting against anti-blackness and forces that want to basically control how we live in our space. It's important that we begin to understand that what being a independent country means for us, being decolonized, what that means, and that really means a look at deconstructing ideas that come from the colonial mentality or the colonial mindset. Things such as, the idea that slavery was easier in the Bahamas. Ideas such as Bahamian Creole English isn't good, that we shouldn't speak it in public, that it shouldn't be part of our, our national conversations. Ideas that being darker skinned is less beautiful, that the way our hair grows out of our head needs to be controlled and tamed to be official and to be proper, to work in government offices, to work in buildings, to work in banks, to go to school, that we have to somehow, transform ourselves into European styles of beauty in order to be socially acceptable. And so decolonization is really about a social, political, economic, I would guess even agricultural removing of European-centered ideas of self and identity for the country. And when it comes to Pride Bahamas, we use the word decolonization really mean the freeing of queer people of the Bahamas, or LGBTQI plus people of the Bahamas, to really begin to create for themselves identities and futures where they can center themselves in the narrative of the country, where they're no longer push it aside, where they're no longer, decentered from conversations. When we go in public as LGBTQI plus people, we are many times, ridiculed, reviled, or silenced. And what decolonization really is about deconstructing the power structures in Bahamian society that allow, those kind of things to happen, that allow these kind of, you know, procedures or forces of silence to operate. It's about creating a new space, you know, a new culture, where everyone in the Bahamas, no matter of who they are, where they come from, how they move through life, that they can already, you know, operate in a healthy and effective ways. Yeah, and that's what decolonization really is in a nutshell, and that's really how it connects to the idea of, you know, reclaiming, you know, pride, for the LGBTQI plus community in the Bahamas. Yeah. Um, I don't know if Alexis, you
See
want
if our
to
mic, let's see if our mic is back up. Erin?
yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
No? Okay, it's clear now. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe turning off the video worked.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah. No, man, that's a cool, that's a great definition, a great introspection to what it is, how it operates, right? That's in
Yeah.
terms of, for me, in terms of pride celebration, pride in the Bahamas, it's not just the courage to be visible, but the
Right,
courage to find
exactly.
us on our own terms, right?
Exactly,
Not just to
exactly.
fulfill our dreams, but to
Mm-hmm.
envision and realize lives we had never imagined would be possible, right? To sort of go beyond an opposition to colonization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine beyond not just past limitations, beyond the limitations.
Right, exactly.
So I wanted to give a couple quick examples of colonization and decolonization. One is, did you know, well, do you know why Bahamian and other people in the Caribbean have such a negative attitude or such negative attitudes and stereotypes around dreadlocks, right? Well, it's because it wasn't until the 40s that the last Caribbean country repealed the law that you could shoot a dreadlock person on site,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was in Dominica in the 40s. And so
Mm-hmm.
prior to the point in Dominica, earlier than that, it was legal to shoot a dreadlock person on site because within the Maroon communities, the priest or the leader of the community would have locks, and
Mm-hmm.
these men and women were feared by their oppressors, and so they were referred to as dreadlocks to support this drastic action that you just shoot a person on sight and be justified in doing that. But when we
Yeah.
think about attitudes you see in the Bahamas
Mm-hmm.
today, like when many years ago, I wore locks, right? Um,
Right.
it's horrible. Like, the police
Mm-hmm.
just pull you down. You have locks, you want to the police. You won't talk to the police today, right? The way that people treated you, the same way they Rastafarians, right? As if they are less
Mm-hmm.
than. And so you think about, like, why are Black people or people of African descent so opposed to dreadlocks, right? Like where they hold their children down and cut off. Or
Yeah.
like in the US, in Baltimore, it's still okay. It's still allowed to discriminate against people for wearing their natural hair. So they can ban cornrows, they ban locks, they ban braids, right? And so, but when realized that there was this law that was so drastic that parents and community members probably tried their hardest to prevent young people, young rebellious people who striving for rights, and who wanted freedom, to stop them from wearing locks because they wanted to be safe, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's only, it's been I would say in the last 10, 15 years that attitude's been changing. A number of lecturers at the University of the Bahamas, then the College Bahamas, have locks. People like Marcia is one of them, right? Lee Woolard has braids, right? We see, I mean, Felix Bethel, I don't know if he ever combed his hair, right? Like, you see the attitude shifting, change around it. But that's what it was written.
Also, I
Yeah.
remember like stories my family used to tell me about women, like women wearing locks was very detestable. And it wasn't until they got some liberation of wearing their locks and owning their locks that people began to understand. But I knew it was some history around women, professional women wearing locks, like wanting to work in a bank and they couldn't work in the bank because of their locks or growing their locks.
Mm-hmm. There's a story that became public about a young woman that had locks and interviewed for a senior, not so senior, but a pretty senior position at Atlantis. And her interview went very well. They told her, you know, you got the job, you got to come to orientation, you know, so orientation in a couple of days. So she came to orientation and the supervisor sat her down, you know, basically said, so when you cut your locks, right? And so she said, went through the entire process with the same locks on her head, right? And nobody ever mentioned anything about policy, about not hair or about locks. But when she got into that interview, when she got into the orientation session, you know, they pressured her to locks, and I think she didn't, right? She did. And so Atlanta got the name Plantis, right? The Plantation Hotel, because that's just a perpetuation, some plantation, colonization foolishness. So I wanted to go just basically, well, the first questions, 4 basic questions about policing bodies, right? Because that's what, like, that's how colonization worked, right? It convinced us to police our own bodies, right? It convinced us that we needed policing, we were less than, and to be civilized, right? Like, you behave a certain way. So I want to ask, you know, how does the state police our bodies? How do community, friends, and family police our bodies? How do we police our own bodies, right, personal bodies? And how do we police the bodies in the LGBTI community, right? And so we're looking at, you know, SOGI, sexual orientation, and gender identity, and heteronormativity, homophobia, right? We police through the nuclear family. You know, we say, look, you got to be traditional. You got this how God intended to be. And then the sanctity of marriage discussed, right? Marriage only between a man and a woman. And family, marriage, family going hand to hand. I think that's for many people, that's a natural inclination, right? No matter you're gay or you're straight, or orientation is, or gender identity, people naturally yearn for to be a part of these institutions, right? And a family to have healthy, functioning families. But, you know, society tells people right off the bat, if you don't into this mode, then there's something wrong with you. And then we can look at the way that we engage with and around bisexuality and sexuality and asexuality, right? And so, like, I don't want to go in depth because I sort of throw them there as questions. We discuss how we police ourselves, how the state polices us, but cisnormativity and transphobia as well. You know, how are trans men and trans women policed by the state, by society, within our community, right? Like, how do police, an example for trans women, if you don't pass, right, then you are, it's like we're worried and give you a certain type of treatment. If you don't pass, well, then, you know, I thought you were a man and can disrespect you in that way. And then for gender unconformed people and then gender fluid and non-binary people, right? I wrote the 4 questions out there. How do we how do we police these bodies, and how do we police our bodies within the, within the construct of these rules that are supposed to order society. So I don't know if we want to pause and talk about it, or I just sort of throw everything on the table one time. And then, okay, so on. Our identities, or Natino?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think masculinity and femininity become currencies by which we value people. So you talk about passing, right? Um, so passing as straight requires fitting into this cis mold of masculinity. And the more and more you can fulfill that role, then more value is accrued to you. And I found like so let's say for instance the way that we deal with trades are more valuable depending on how much more masculine they are, how much more DL they are, how much more they can hide these the fact that they are LGBTQ and pass for a cisgendered person. That's that valued is also then monetized by the kind of body that they have. If you have a six pack, you know, if you're ripped, if your body's in shape, Alexis. So if you have these
We're
things,
ready, honey.
yeah, and so then you can charge more, you get more, and so and because then your value or your stocks, you know, because of your body, you go up, and the more you can then if you have if you have a wife and you have kids and you have all those things, the value increases as if you, especially if you're making six figures, right? Then you move to you move to an even more valuable position because instead of me having to pay, I can now be the beneficiary of payments from you. And so it's this kind of narrative, or it's this kind of valuing or exchanging the currency of masculinity and femininity and how we perceive them in society, that I think like it warrants the interrogation, because something, and hopefully I get to write on it a little bit later, but I really want to dive into the value of masculinity within the Bahamian space, because you talk about for transgendered women, the more passing that they are, the more value is accrued, right? So then that the nearer they can get to the socially acceptable idea of the cultural femininity, then they move into a space where they can not experience the microaggressions or the macro or the big aggressions, if you want, against themselves. And in that way, they help to avoid the issues that other persons would often be faced with, right? I think when we were in the Trinidad and Tobago's, or when they were talking about, I can't remember. She called them. She said that they are. Oh God, she called them. I can't remember. But nevertheless, I termed the people here in the Bahamas. I term them as elite gays, and the elite gays or the elite LGBTQ people, they're able to go off and be queer in the States and then come back home when they need to. And so I can't remember the words that she called them that they used in Trinidad and Tobago's the farm that
She said privileged.
yeah. So she called them the privileged LGBTQ people, but I call them, and I was going to use that in a paper that I have in my head, and you know the on right written here, but you see it where they can have their boyfriend, or they can do their transactions outside of the state, right? And they don't have to interact with the community at all. They can bypass the social exclusion. They can bypass the discrimination and prejudice, because they're going to be they may be on the fringes of passing, and as they're able to pass through society and navigate, they don't have to deal with the average incidents or average issues that regular LGBTQ people or low socioeconomic LGBTQ people would have to deal with, because they're making their lives here. Who they're loving is here. Everything that they do, the transactions, all are done within the Bahamas. Some of LGBT people, I mean, they get to go off, but like they're not like their whole world basically. They look at this as being the place that they should invest their lives in. And I'm not saying that it's a bad or a good thing. I'm just saying that what actually happens, right? And because the elite gays, as I call them, right, just put in quotations, because they're able to transact, they're able to come into contact with burgeoning ideas that are happening in other queer spaces or LGBTQ spaces within Atlanta, within Washington, D.C. They come back home with all of these new ideas and they bring them here, right? They bring them here, but they're not, they bring them here amongst their friends. And so that liberation that they're experiencing, right, is I don't know, it's for them, it enables to live their life very categorically different than from those who don't have those access and that space to do so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, and so we look at the intersections, right, of identity, and that instance intersection of queerness, and I use, if anyone is offended by them, no, right? Because I use that as sort of broad positive term, but you know, the intersection of queerness and wealth, or queerness and class, or queerness and status, right? Where people are able to travel, right? And people are able to be visible in other spaces, right? And so I'm wondering about this question: is it unfair for us to judge them, right? Because they have a degree of wealth, and they can travel, right? They can live a life outside of this sort of plantation space, this colonized space, this hard space where visibility is dangerous. You know, are we unfairly judging them because of this sort of intersection with wealth or with class? Do they have an obligation to be a part of the class struggle, right? Or a part of the liberation movement? Is that feeling of liberating their own have? And are we sort of policing them and their experiences because it doesn't align with what we hope they would want to be? And you know, we don't have to answer, but I wanted to sort of segue into, which I think you did really well. Natino, can speak.
Oh, I was gonna say, the issue with decolonization is that all of us have to be. So Frantz Fanon, right? Frantz Fanon talks about the fact that we don't need to. There's this idea that we have to come together and we need to do. We have to be unified, right? And to a degree, yes, there has to be unification. Frantz Fanon posits the idea that because of the oppression, and he was talking from a racial one, right? But I think it's true of sexual oppression, right? I think that he says this. He says that we're already unified by our oppressive natures or the oppressive structures that keep us in bondage, right? And I think that that's true. There's no need for us to I guess ask for us to be unified, because we're all experiencing, whether or not you have money, you still experience it. Now, the degree in which you experience it may be a little bit less, but somebody somewhere is going to say something to some degree about you. Now, just because you have more money does not mean that you will escape it, right? It can buffer you just a bit, right? But I think the issue here is we're calling for people with privilege to use that privilege for the benefit of not just themselves, but everyone within the community. And if someone says to me, well, that's not an obligation, right? Well, then that's fine. If you don't think it's an obligation, that's fine, right? But for me, and this is how I've had to differentiate, right? Paulo Freire talks about the categories of oppressor and oppressed. If you're not going to speak up for the community, then I'm going to take your silence as you are against the community. That I can't do anything else, because I cannot count on you to do anything when I'm being killed, or if I'm being hurt, or if I'm receiving some prejudice or some form of discrimination. I can't count on you because you're going to be silent. And guess what? You have the right to be silent. I have the right then to consider you as an enemy to the struggle that I'm in. Because, and I think James Baldwin puts this like very just succinctly. He says, we can disagree and still be friends, and I can still love you. But it can't be on. It can't be. We can't disagree and me still love you if that disagreement is rooted in my oppression. Or hell no. No. Either you have to pick a side. Either you are for me and you're willing to stand with me and be with me through the struggle, or you are against me. And so if you choose not to answer, then that's fine. You don't have to answer. You don't have to do anything. I take your silence as complicity, that you believe that you are an oppressor, that you believe that because of your privilege, you don't have to deal with the struggles.
So last question then, because you specifically to silence, and maybe it's broader than that, right? But is in this instance, silence the same thing as non-visibility?
Non-ability? What do you mean by non-ability?
No, non-visibility.
Non-visibility. Okay.
No, non-visibility. Yeah.
Watch this. You know what I've learned, right? I've learned that when you love someone, when you really love them, there are certain things that you're willing to forego because it means that much to the individual. And I think, like, when we really talk, and this is why it gets me, right? Because we live in a space where, and my whole thing is, I'm the kind of person, I don't call you friend unless you really are a friend. I will call you an acquaintance for as long as you need to be called that, until I'm sure that I can depend on you in certain circumstances, right? So I'll talk for me, right? I remember dealing with some internalized issues, right? And I remember trying to have these conversations with my mom, right? And she just refused to have these conversations. And I flat out said to her, now you can either choose. I don't need you as a mother. I said, I would love to have you. I said, I would love to have you. And listen, me and my mom are very close. But this is non-negotiable, especially when it comes to my life. Either you want me as a son, or we could forget that you even exist. Now that may be harsh. It may be harsh. But I was serious with her. I wasn't playing with her. I love her to death, but I'm not playing. When it comes to me, you either love me or you could get the hell out. And watch this, I'm very serious about that, because you don't get to play with my emotions like that. You don't, because you don't know what I'm dealing with. Watch this, I already have all of this going on. I already have to deal with the fact that I sometimes don't want to wake up, that I sometimes feel depressed, that I sometimes have to deal with I don't think my body looks the way that it should look. I have body dysmorphia, or as I'm transitioning, my hair is doing this thing where it may be falling out. All of this is happening. I don't need, if you're gonna be in my corner, then be in it. Watch this. Watch this. You don't have to know everything, but sometimes all it calls for is you just to stand there. Even if your level of visibility is such that you do not want to be seen, all I'm asking you to do is hold my hand in the dark. And if you're saying to me that you can't do that because you fear that somehow the love that we have will be exposed, and that will mean then that you're compromised, then I have to listen. Do I mean more to you, or do the words of the people that we're gonna face together mean more to you? Because at the end of the day, if you say you with me, I fighting with you. And I give that hardcore example. You could ask her. Listen, no. Either you want me as a son, or you don't. Choose. Now, now granted, I may be in a position of privilege, right? And people will say, oh, well, you have that luxury. Fine, if you say that, right? But, and I acknowledge that. To some degree, yes. But during that particular conversation, she had every right to be like, get the hell out. Do this, do whatever, right? That would have been her prerogative. But I was willing to forego her saying those words to see if she was ready to put her money where her mouth is. Because either you love me or you don't. Especially when it matters.
I understand. And so, absolutely, but so, thank you. That was really, personal, and
yeah, I'd like to add.
Alexa, go on.
Yeah, I think, it is, are you for me or are you against me? It's just straightforward. When we talk about visibility, I think the fair when it comes to visibility for our community is the fact that they don't have any other options or outlets. And like Natano said, it might be privilege for him because some parents will be like, get the hell out. Like, this is what? What do you, like, are you in your right mind? So we need to look at the scale of this. Like he might say privilege for him, and for somebody else who want to be visible, they live in their parents' house, they have no other option but to conform to brothers and sisters around them who they may not be out to, or to family members, because that's the only way they're getting food on the table. That's the only way they're getting their tuition paid. That's the only way they're getting a way of living. And we in our community don't have any options for these individuals or alternative options. And I think that's where we need to start focusing when we talk about visibility. What are the options for our community? As we know with Pride in Trinidad, when they came out for Pride, a lot of the persons after that were thrown out of their house. So the committee then had to figure out, how do we now sustain these individuals that we may become visible or that chose to be visible under our banner as a human being, identifying as LGBTI queer people?
I think just
Absolutely.
so that
Ide, say that thing
Okay.
that in the group. Unless you want to say that group and so you can go on.
Go ahead, Ide. You can talk? Or are you typing? Unmute your
I
mic,
think that
Ide.
visibility is kind of all we have.
Well, so I was gonna say, so Ide, me and Ide was
Yeah.
having this conversation, right? And Ide said to me, and I told Ide, I said, Ide, I'm gonna put that in one of my papers. I'm gonna quote you, right? Ide said to me that the power of our queerness is it's in its visibility, right? Or he said he can't unmute himself. Okay, okay, um, okay, we understand. So I think, like, I get it. It's a big thing to ask, right? Again, I can see you. Oh, you get it. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ida. I'll let you.
Yeah, it's like when I talk about visibility, visibility is the power of being seen, and a lot of queer theory, you talk about how, or even research, we talk about how attitudes toward, LGBTI people, the thing that shifts, shifts away from negative attention is when you can put a face to the name. When people see it's their son or their daughter or their nephew or their father, their mother, their brother, their lover. When they see this person as part of the community, they're like, oh wow. It's not until you put faces and names, people can create emotional distance between themselves and people in the community, and they can say whatever they want about people who they don't know. If this person is on the other side of the world, they can be like, okay, this person doing what they want to do over there. I don't care about them, their rights, whatever. But when it's someone who's close to them, who's in their heart, that's when it becomes that much more difficult, to ignore. And that's what visibility is. It's a power of connection. I mean, when people realize that you know LGBTQ people are humans. This is not only just a human, but it's a human I know. It's a human I love. It's a human I have seen grow up from a child, from a baby, and I love all these other parts about them. So how can I not love this one section as well? And it's that cognitive dissonance that creates in a person that begins to really, transform the way they view being queer, and their perceptions of the community. And it's when you get them in that space that they can really, begin to grapple with, why do I have this negative perception of people in the community? Why do I feel I need to talk about these people in a certain kind of way? Where is this coming from? Is it something internal? Is it something external? And when you begin to ask questions, that's when you begin to walk on the road to freedom. And begin to walk on the road to really, recapturing, agency, and begin to recapture, the idea of of what it means to be, in communication or be in a community with people who you may not fully understand at first, and that's where, like, in James Baldwin, when he talks about in The Fire Next Time, he talks about how white people need to understand that it is them, they're the ones who need to do the work of deconstructing racism, in the world. And it's not the job of the queer people to do it. Yes, we must protect ourselves and understand who we are, but it is the cis people, it's the heterosexuals who do view themselves, think themselves as being heterosexual. It's them who have to do the work of creating the world where we all can live in, you know? And that's really what visibility is all about. It's beginning to get people to ask the uncomfortable questions. I mean, I've been in classes where sometimes I may wear like nail polish, and people have asked me questions, it's like they want to learn. They're intrigued in a certain kind of way, and I like when that happens, because that is the beginning. That's a teachable moment. That's a moment of seeing me, of being visible, and really being in communication, in community with someone who before then would have seen someone to me on the street and been like, oh, that's not a sissy person. Oh, I don't want to be around them. Or I don't want to associate with them. But they're forced to now, and I have to reckon with that.
Yes, it's the reckoning.
Yes.
And yes, it's the reckoning. Yes, right. It's the reckoning. And you have watch this. I think under this kind of systematic structure that we live in a capitalistic society, the only thing I have, and I learned this very early on, and I'm still figuring out ways to deal with it, right? But I learned that my body is my greatest weapon. My body is my greatest weapon. And so if I wear a particular pants that may be deemed socially unacceptable to be worn, quote unquote, as a man, or because they will perceive me as a man, but they don't know the gender that I identify as. And it causes that questioning. I take pride in that, because you know what? I need you to deal with that, because it's your problem. Watch this. I've been uncomfortable all my life by the fact that I've had to adjust myself, hide pieces of myself, do this, loathe myself, all of that. No. It's time for you to be uncomfortable. It's time for you to deal with the cognitive dissonance. It's time for you to reckon with your colonial ideas. And it's time for you to decolonize. That's what this is about. And so visibility forces that. And the issue is, we acknowledge to a degree, yes, we are forcing the issue, because you know why? For years, we have been force-fed heteronormativity. For years, we've sat by passively and we ingested all of the garbage, even though we knew that that was not us. And I am sick and tired of it. We're no longer being passive about this. We're very forthcoming, right? We're very active. We're gonna watch this. We respect all people, but at the same time, we want to be free. And watch this. We're heading for freedom. Now, this is a train that's moving. The only thing that you need to ask is, do you have a ticket? Are you on board? Because once this gets moving, we are going to actualize our reality. We are going to have the best kind of lives. And I do not mean in an exploitative way. I mean in a way that reimagines the society that we live in. I think I was telling somebody, right? I've been reading this book. I didn't get too far with it. It's How to Be Gay by David M. Halpern, right? He talks about the fact that whenever countries are vibrant, it's because they have a very queer, creative community. So the LGBTQ community is at the forefront of innovation, at the forefront of change. When you look at Alicia Seymour's dress, that's innovation. That's at the forefront of what we deem Bahamian. Because when they see Miss Bahamas or Miss Universe, they see Alicia Seymour's dress, her creativity. But that doesn't get brought up, because you know what? No, we want to hide that. We want to push her to the back. She's only good enough to make the dresses, but she won't be able to be on the stage and be awarded and applauded for her creative work. And that's not how it works. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. We need to talk about this, right? We need to talk about that. For years, the choreographed sections of Junkanoo have been led by and choreographed by queer or LGBTQ Bahamian men, right? Or however they've identified themselves. That needs to happen. We need to have the discussion. And we're going to force the discussion because it's time. Listen, like, visibility has to happen. The only way, and watch this, as someone who's been working on in the theoretical kind of framework, listen, I've thought about as many ways as possible, and I'm like, what is the common denominator? And I keep coming back to visibility. Visibility has to happen. And watch this. That meant that for me, I had to come out from the shadows. And watch this. That was hard, but you have to do it. At some point or another, you have to embrace that. Now, to the degree that you're willing to embrace that, you could take the journey as long as you want, right? We're here to help you at whatever journey you wish to be helped. But at the same time, do not ask me to wait. I'm done waiting. I'm done. Watch this. I'm done praying to a white Jesus to help me to deal with the situation. No, I want it now. It's my right. We're gonna have it. And if you feel some type of way, then that's okay. Listen, if you want to be an enemy, that's fine. My whole thing about people is, and I say this, whenever you are ready to disidentify with the oppressor, I'm ready to be a friend. But as long as you identify with the oppressor, then baby, you can count me as an enemy. And I mean that. I mean that. Because all I'm trying to do is survive. And if you're going to make that difficult for me, then guess what? I don't like to fight, but if I have to, then I know how to. That's simple. It's simple.
I hear you.
You know, I may be getting a little bit riled up, but or you know, a little, but legit.
Yeah, you get a bit riled up. That's okay.
It's
okay.
That's how I think we need to understand the sense of urgency. That there are people who have been waiting for years to have this, to hold their partner's hand, to love openly. And listen, the time is now. Watch this. Yes, COVID-19 is happening. Yes, Doreen has happened. And yes, we were impacted and affected in that way. But there's also an opportunity for new things, for innovation, for creative change. Sorry, Alexus, go ahead. I'm done.
Oh, go ahead. I was listening. I'm just boiling inside because I share the same sentiments that you have and the same passion that you have. There's no more time to be waiting to be handed something that is already ours. And again, the visibility again comes from the power is in visibility. The power is us standing together. I may be the one out there advocating, you may be advocating, Erin out there advocating, but until our community understands their own value and their own worth and the importance of being visible, then change will begin to happen. And then the domino effect will happen. But again, we must begin to empower our own communities.
Okay, so what I say, hey, you know, I'm not just queer, I'm not just bi, I'm not just a trans woman, right? I am more than that, right? I am an African in the diaspora, right? I am a creative, I'm a birther, like, you know, to what extent am I allowed to not be defined by my queerness in space where our identity is often boiled down to just that, right? You queer, so you can be a teacher. You are queer, you can't work around children. You are queer, so you can't be in the church, right? So, you know, I want to throw these things there and complicate them. I'm not contradicting you at all, you know, but I do want to sort of goosey or revisit the idea that, or the question, to what extent with this position as advocates are we policing other queer people's bodies and their willingness to be visible? And, you know, can we create, if we can create movements that accommodate these people, can we create spaces that accommodate people? Because, you know, if somebody says to me, I will die if people know, right? So I'm talking about societies where people literally go to jail or could be executed, right? But, you know, someone who really believes that they will die, and how do we go about creating a space in which it's possible for them to experience the freedom that you experience in your visibility? or at least to begin to understand it.
Well, okay, so
And
from,
maybe that's just a bit complicated and you don't really want to answer it, but I just want to throw that out. But please respond if you want to.
so so the private spaces, right? Um, I think that if someone comes to me and says to me, okay, this is how far I'm willing to go in terms of the support, then okay, we'll use it, right? But I think that you talk about the fact that they said that they will die, right? Now, I'm a bit of like, I'm a straight shooter, right? So I say it. The truth of the matter is that while there's a fear of death, right? Um, whether that's actually gonna happen, I like, I can't speak to that, right? I don't know if I can say, I can't tell people what they can I guess endure, right? But I can tell them this, right? Because I don't want to, I don't want to co-opt their narratives, right? That's number one. That's what I don't want to do, right? But I think that I would challenge with this, that if you're gonna die from embracing the truth about yourself at the highest level, then I mean, from my perspective, like, and I'm not suggesting that anyone be a martyr, then think about, if we look at the civil rights movement, that's what embracing who you are requires sometimes, right? It requires that if you're gonna live your authentic self, that you may be prepared to, die. And I think, like, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, well, that may be that it could happen, right? But it's possible that it won't happen, right? I think that in me coming to this person that you see here before, I can tell you, if you met me 5 years ago, you wouldn't have get this, Natino. You just wouldn't. I wasn't ready. And you couldn't pull me. I wasn't.
So do you think that's what it is? Some persons aren't ready. The 5 year ago Natino, we have persons in our community who are still at the 5 year Natino.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. See, but let me tell you what happened, right? So from my perspective, and again, I've been trying to understand, and I know everyone doesn't go through the same things, but we experience similar things in varying degrees, right? So what happened for me, what brought me to this point, was a social collapse, right? And a social collapse was that all the ideas that I had built my life on, like, they just, like, they imploded on themselves. So I had literally, like, even though I haven't talked about this, like, I probably told Ide about this, because Ide was one of the first persons that I met trying to get to this point. And to be honest with you, even though, like, me and Ide disagree fundamentally on a lot of stuff, at that particular point in time, the conversations that we were having around our queerness and what it meant, like, having him there, it was like, okay, the universe is doing its wonder. I just gotten back into university. I was like, okay, I found my little mojo. And when I met Ide was like, I mean, Ide was visible. He had on headscarf. His whole hands and toenails were painted. And there was something majestic about who he was. And I said to myself, I want to be like that. I just like, whatever that is, I need, like, I just need to have just a semblance of that. And he, like, in the classes, right, and he would walk around just ambivalent to everybody, and he would be, he would just go about his day. Like, in seeing him just function, it was, honestly, it was magical, right? I told him this, like, and we became friends in the very first class. Like, his mind, just hearing him, I'm like, just watching him, I'm like, so for me, like, watching him do his thing, I was like, as we got closer and closer and I got to know him, I was like, okay, so that's how he's doing it. So this is how he's going. So I'd ask questions. Now, Ide is a little bit younger than me, but again, like, I'm like, I just don't know how to do it like this. Like, I mean, and granted that these were things that he taught himself and learned as he went, right? But there was a just an authenticness about that. And I think that's what it'll take. It'll take us partnering with other people who have walked the mile. So if I need, if I find that I'm in awe and I see Alexus just being herself, and I say, you know what, I think I can do that. I do my best to get to know Alexus, and I get to know other people. Like the universe sent some, like what I needed, the universe sent to me. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, he makes this quote, right? He says, whatever you're looking, he says, whenever you make a decision, the universe conspires to make that happen. So I would say, right? So when I read that, I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, so I have to make the decision that I'm going to go for it. And trust me, there were times when I was like, no, you need to go, like, just stay right here, and Alexus could even tell you, like, when she first took me to the radio station, I was like, listen, I'm still figuring this out. So if you see me go back a little bit, it's because I'm still kind of like, I'm still figuring it out. I want to go forward, but this is still scary because I know what's going to happen. I know the consequences. And I know that once I cross that line, I can't go back.
So let me ask you this question. And then I want to tell a short story. Do you see yourself or identify as an advocate? And if you do you feel that you have a duty of care to people in the community, whether you know who they are or not? Or do you identify as a creative? And do you feel you have a duty of care to your audience in terms of how you engage the subject of decolonization? And if I sort of visit how you flip the switch, right? Like, are you engaging with the intent to awaken a fear, right, in us?
Yes. So, okay, now, to be honest with you, like, I don't like labels, period, right? Like, I just don't like them. I think labels are good for, like, Lexus, this, that. But I understand that people identify with these labels and they love them. That's fine, right? I challenge ideas. Like, so I think, so the first time I heard someone call me advocate was Dr. Christopher Curry. He was like, you're an advocate, right? And I was like, I don't know if that's what I want or that's what I am, but like, this is me. So I definitely am an advocate and I definitely am a creative. I'll tell you that, right? Even before I knew what I wanted to do creatively, I've always known that I wanted to write about this queerness. I didn't have the language. I really didn't. I wanted to write about my experience. I've always felt this duty to help other people because I feel as if nobody should have to go through this. Nobody should have to go through all this internalized homophobia, internalized heterosexism, and all of this. Like the mental anguish, the emotional, the cognitive dissonance, like to the point where like you're having these physiological responses. If nothing else, all I knew is that on a psychological level, we have all experienced these things that I'm talking about, right?
And who's responding to these things that we go through? No one.
And see, so what I wanted to do is, and I'm still in the process, I've started to write my book, and my book is gonna be, hopefully, if I could do it properly the way that I envision it, a walking of people through the psychological issues that they're facing, because that's the thing that nobody is talking about, right? And they're specific to the Bahamian context, but maybe it can be applied to other contexts. We don't know. We'll see what we have in common once we start that, right? But I wanted to write for other LGBTQ Bahamians. Now, I'm trying to write as broadly as possible So I'm gonna so consulting people on their differing experiences, and taking those collective information and piling it so that everybody could have this may be true for transgendered individuals in the Bahamian context. This may be true for lesbian individuals. This may be true for people who identify as gay in the Bahamian context. So trying to mesh all of that into a book of some sort, or books, because I anticipate this will be a lifelong journey. But I do feel a sense. Number one of the reasons why, and I've been looking. Now, my whole thing is, and Ide can tell you, my whole thing is burn Rome down, burn it down, burn all it down, right? But I've been trying to figure out how, and I don't know. The universe was so, I guess, amazing in that it guided me into this kind of, I guess, LGBTQ research, Bahamian research, and I'm honestly understanding that with the intersectionality of all of these various issues. I was watching the Divergent series, and something that they said is that the people who are divergent are the solution to humanity's problems. And I don't know why that stuck with me. That just it stuck with me. So it's like, so if LGBTQ individuals are the divergent people, they're being ostracized for being divergent, right? Then could it possibly be that we're the missing piece to the puzzle? We're the solution to the issues that are happening. And could it be then that what we actually need in decolonization can actually happen if we embrace our visibility and queerness? And I don't know, it stuck with me. And until it's proven otherwise, like, I've been riding the wave. Now I can only follow the universe for right now, right? But this has been a bumpy ride, but listen, it's been wonderful. And I really think that if we understood that pride upsets the balance of all the things that we're actually trying to change, because when we talk about LGBTQ people, we're talking about redefining what a family is, right? That it not only includes the people that you happen to be born to, but the ones you chose, right? If we start redefining and reimagining, and if we say, okay, well then, if we expand the definition of of sex, because Caster Semenya, and other people with AIS syndrome, or if we get people to understand that there's more than two sexes, just how we're getting them to finally understand that there are more than two genders, right?
Or that it isn't a binary. It isn't a binary concept, or that type of quantitative concept.
So watch this. But by doing so, we break the mold of binary, of the model of binary. And by breaking the binary model, we give space to something new. Now, what that is, we will have to figure out together as we move. But from my research, I'm figuring out that pride as a form of decolonization, or as decolonization itself, and us asking for our rights, is doing the same things that I wanted to do in burning down Rome and changing the systematic structure. Because watch this, if we could make, and I know we can do it, if we make the Bahamian accommodate us, which they should have already done, because it's our right, then they have to accommodate other marginal groups of people, like undocumented individuals, refugee individuals, right? Then you have to start looking at what the Bahamas is actually going to look like with an inclusive kind of ideology. Because now,
And
we no longer...
there that if we...
Go ahead.
I would say, and throw in that if we challenge the space, the place queerness holds in our collective, then people realize that all of the other things are also all been falsely challenged. I think, the Bahamians view human rights as the rights that God gave you as human. Right? That's so you have the right to be if you want, or the hell you don't do, right? And the right to die when God decides to over. Right? If you are alive, well, you have the right to live in the country that God born you in, or did you want it because that's what God destined for you. And if we challenge the attitudes of queer people, you know, who have been other, who we have been taught in other, then we challenge the attitudes around all of the others, right? All, notice that the act of othering, and so, and why we felt it necessary, right? And so if I just draw sort of back to the beginning, I gave the definition of colonialism, right? But I'm a anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist activist, and I think colonialism is a tool in the imperial agenda, right? The same way that racism, it teaches us, is a tool to divide, and the heterosexism, it teaches us, is a tool to divide and conquer all, right? So I agree with you. I just wanted to frame it and bring back to that sort of colonialization as a tool of imperialism, right? And as a mechanism designed to divide. And if that's the case, then it validates your, I don't want to just belief, but your knowledge, your experience, that it validates your experience that to be separate or decide to be separate is an act. To be silent is just an inaction. It's an action, right? And they just, so I want to throw that. I want to throw that in there. And then I wanted to give another example that, you know, to explore the intersection of identity, what it means to decolonize, and how challenging it can be, in the same way that you cannot be in a space with people who understand the need of community and visibility and unity, but still decide to be invisible.
Yes.
So go on.
I was gonna say, right. So from the research that I've read, right. Listen, our greatest fight is not gonna be the heterosexuals. Our greatest fight is gonna be the community. That's what listen, from the research, everyone who's tried to make a change say that it's the community that resists the change.
Mm-hmm.
So we are. So
let me tell you this.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you this story. Because it's not like the community. Sometimes it's the people in charge, right? Sometimes it's the advocates, and sometimes the donors, and sometimes it's queer donors, right? So I want to tell a quick story, and I want to ask you to respond, Ide, Alexa, but also open up the wider, you know, conversation to the wider audience. So a few years ago, I went to this sort of donor meeting where a regional organization was restructuring its a donor proposal, right, for a long-term 3-period proposal. And we were on this recreation break. And we were on this going somewhere. And this Dutch man, gay man, asked me, and I realized in a sort of ridicule way, asked me if the Bahamas is saying like all of its islands, right? So I said, man, watch nothing. You can't take island home you when you leave. So if you get upset, we just have to leave the country and take our island back. And he got very upset and started talking, that's against international laws. You can't be a part of international community if you are willing to, you know, if you break what's globally accepted, you know, international law, and it's just going to be a massive problem. So quickly, I said that can't work. I said, but look, I think it's important for us to acknowledge this, that the same way you, a Dutch man, think that you can continue to police the bodies and land that they exist on and came from of black and brown, black and brown bodies is the same way these bodies think they can police our queer bodies. And so it's important for us to not just interrogate that, but why you would say that to me at this meeting, right? Now, it was a complete silence on the bus. And it wasn't until the next day that somebody came up being, in absolute, and it was like, look, I really appreciate what you said to that boy on the bus. But then at the same time, I realized that you can't be pissing fuzz off, right? Like you can't be upsetting and stoking, juicy in the people who you begin you money. So I was a little, concerned about the impact of my action, especially since they don't fund the Bahamas. So for me, it wasn't a big deal. For other members of the organization, it may have been a problem. But I thought it was important this boy to know you can't be around talking about you with a fun revolution, but it's sitting in the bus trying to have me and my guy. And that's our land, and you all know it's our land, and we can put it, but we'll pay you back, you your money back, and take land back and watch nothing. But so in space we had this sort of intersection of race, a white man, right? And he was, I wouldn't say he was effeminate, but he was doubly queer, and in his behavior, and but he was racist. And I felt the need to call him out on it because I thought it was detrimental in the picture to the work that we're doing, that funders understand the extent these theories go, right? We're not just picking up what you say in the manual should be talking about. These are things that, scholars are working. I ain't no scholar just talking about what the people is talking about, right? But, sorry, go on, Alexus.
No, I'm concurring with what you're saying, especially when it comes to funders. Go ahead.
Yeah, but but I also have to be very wary of power dynamic, right? In space, the space is totally decolonized yet. But I also was really hard because it became aware with me that he's one of the sort of funders that come good time, right? And so there may be the expectation that you play to pay for me to pay. And if I have a good time, you'll make sure I have a good time on this trip to improve your chance of getting some fun. And so it just was important for me to say something to him though. And so and Natino, I appreciate you saying it's not just what you believe, it's your experience, right? And that it has to be said, and the connections have to be made for this process of actualizing something different to her. So I want to, been on for about an hour and 20 minutes now, and I wanted to open the discussion to the other participants if they wanted to ask a question, make any comments in particular, or engage, or you just engage with what you're feeling around what pride is decolonization means to you, and how you feel about, I guess, about what we're talking about. And so I will, if you raise your hand, if you go into the more option, you can raise your hand and I can unmute, one of the co-hosts can unmute your mic to engage. All right, so one of the things I also find...
Erin, just before you continue, I think Ide had something, he had his hand up.
Oh, go on, Natino.
I said Ide had his hand up. Ide had his hand up, and he wanted to say
go
something
on.
for a bit.
Yeah. Okay, I unmute you, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I just wanted to comment quickly that interaction with that man, that queer white Dutch man, and how he was trying to police, the black life and operate. That's very telling of the ways in which when I guess, liberal or left, ideology, people with ideologies come together and say, okay, we need to fix this issue. But you can only fix this issue on our terms. They're still defining what are, for, people trying to help, they define what their freedom, what their better, what their goal looks like. And that's the problem. It's part of this, it's this paternalistic kind of I guess advocacy, or maybe a better word is paternalistic I guess charity that you see that operates around the world. And that's part of the whole capitalist kind of complex. Is this neoliberal kind of idea that when you go and give aid, you have to have all these bells and whistles and these things tied to it. And that's what in some ways actually creates more of the problems that we see today, as Black people, as queer people, as as whatever whatever your part of your group you are a part of. The issue becomes is that how do you really be the one who is in control of your own fate in these situations where the very table that you're sitting at isn't built for you. You're not at the table. You're being told, they tell you, okay, we can give you this money, but you got to use it this way. And we see that again in time. We see the history of the Caribbean, after independence. When you think about things like Jamaica, what international organizations did to these countries, they forced them in situations where they could control them. And we always have to be, aware that we live in a system that's not decolonized yet. We don't live like we may be independent. People there may be things as the UN and these bodies, but all of them are still entrenched in this capitalist system of oppression and figuring out how to get people to honestly to get them to allow you to use themselves. And that's the key. I think that we have to be twice as aware as is going on in these spaces. Yeah.
And to concur what you're saying about that, especially in the donor space, that's why we had to make a firm decision, nothing for us without us. And that starts from the decision-making process when we sit down with the donor to say, hey, you cannot map what works in the USA, it's not gonna work in the Bahamas. What works in Jamaica may not work in the Bahamas. So from the planning process with the funders and the donors, we have to make it very clear in our advocacy, nothing with us, for us, without us. So just like what you're saying, Ide, they come with these restrictions, they come with these things based on, like you say, being colonized on the way things should go, especially in policing people's bodies, in policing migrants, in policing queer people. They come with these ideologies already established, which was ingrained with them from back then. So breaking down those systems is very important. I mean, you could fund me, let's use an example, you could fund me for a safe house, but in your funding, you're gonna say, oh, you can only have Black people, or you can only have migrant Black people. That's limiting the options and opportunities for other persons who may be needing to be a part of that program. So they come with these ideologies and systems already.
So, Erin, if I could just get here, right? I want, like, one of the things that I've been instrumental in, or I think about, right, is whenever I take on a task, I try to map out how I'm gonna get there. And I think that we have to look at integrity, right? If we want the LGBTQ plus community to have an integral kind of character through and through, and watch this, by integral, I'm not talking about a heteronormative integrity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an integrity where when we say something as a community, we mean it. So if we say we marching and everybody's showing up. In order for us to have that, it means then that all of us have to be held accountable, right? And so we want to make sure that in our donor or when we take money from someone, that they understand that you do not get to have, I guess, control over what goes on in the process of this. We will give you our plan, we will give you this, but this is like, I would much rather us wait or not have it at all. My mommy always tell me, don't put your basket higher than it can reach. Sometimes it may mean that we don't get the funding You don't compromise just so that you could get some money. Forget that. Listen, I
Yes.
create. Well, listen,
Yes.
listen. Especially the LGBT.
100%. I want to stop right there. And this is so dear to me, because guess what? Funders will give you money and they will tell you, oh, this is the restriction, this is the restriction. No. That's why philanthropy for me is so important, to be able to donate into my community. I don't want somebody telling me what to do with the money they gave me. So let me take my little money I make and invest it back into my community, because I understand the programs that our community needs. Again, it goes back to nothing with us, without us, by us. So taking funders' money just to fit into their colonization work, because they have no reason, they don't understand. We're trying to decolonize, but they have colonization work. Okay, don't speak, when you go into parliament, be very this, be very that, blah, 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 blah. No, that's why, for me, the point that you're hitting on, and I interject, is very important for our community. And that's why we lack the visibility, because again, it comes with these restrictions of how we should be, what we should say, and what we shouldn't say. Go ahead.
Oh, let me just add.
Go ahead.
Absolutely right. I'm a African descent woman. I'm an African woman. Don't like to comb my hair, but people let me know all the time, Mary. In subtle ways, you gotta give me a hair, and I don't like to iron. I can be honest with you, not because I don't like to press you. It's like we in an energy crisis. I try to save a little bit of energy I can, right? For real. You get policed very heavily. That respectability politics. We don't have a problem with your advocacy. We don't have a problem gayness, but you don't look the part. And they don't even, a lot of the time don't say it.
Yeah, fitting into that mold, especially in government settings, you have to fit into this mold of how you should conduct yourself. It's to the point where you can't even speak on Facebook without somebody inboxing you and saying, "Oh my God, Alexus, like just don't curse on." I said, "Excuse me, this is my page. Like, I'm a human rights activist, but I am a human being. And I'm speaking for my community." But when you reach this certain level with government, they expect you to behave a certain way. And again, as civil society, we have to remember that we must not be in bed with the government, period.
But so, Erin, this is why I don't like the label of advocate, right? Because the minute you start saying that, they're like, okay, well, this is how an advocate acts. This is how, and watch this. I made it plainly clear, I do not bend to respectability politics. If you're looking for me to play that game, listen, you better go to another stadium, because it ain't happening over here. It just ain't happening here. I'm not playing that game. I will not fit into your boxes. I'm not pandering to anything that you think supposed to be this is the way to do it. No. You could ask Ide. Like, there are certain times I remember there was this meeting at the University of the Bahamas, and they wanted all of us to dress up and come in coat, suit, and tie. I walked in there in a gym short, in sweatshorts, and I said, I dare one of y'all to tell me something. You know why? I said to them, and they asked me, so why? So I had to explain to the president. I said, I'm not walking up in here in no sweatsuit and shirt and tie. I said, because for me, that's gonna cause me to lose focus, because the people that I represent, they don't wear sweatsuit. Sorry, they ain't wear no. They don't even have what y'all asking me to produce. And just because I have that, I don't want to think for 1 second that me and y'all is friends, because me and y'all ain't friends. Y'all have an agenda, and I trying to get something done. So if I'm trying to get this done, I'm playing no games with y'all. Listen, you can smile up. I'll drink your wine. I'll drink your cheese. I'll eat the free food. But no, I'm not playing that game with you. You playing my game. Listen, this is my race. And you about to lose. Because you know why? I played your game long enough. And like, that's the mentality that I have, right? And so when it comes to, I'm not holding back. Watch this. If I'm not comfortable, I'm not doing it. I'm not. And watch this, that takes a lot of energy to say no. But you could ask, listen, I row from the president to the provost. I don't care. You know why? Because if you're gonna hear and if you're gonna truly listen, then you need to shut up. If you say you all about it, and you could ask him. I remember I sat in there and he was like, they were telling me, oh, you shouting. I said, no. I said, this is how I talk in my house. I said, it may be a bit loud. I say, that's because when I get excited, and I say, and at that time he was cutting me off. No. You shut up when I'm talking, because I shut up when you talking. No, see, and it's that, oh, you're talking too loud. This is how we do it. And then afterwards, I think he tried
Tone policing.
That's what it was. It was tone policing, right? And then afterwards, he said to me, he was like, it's clear that you don't understand how higher education work. I looked him right in his, I looked at him right in his face. I said, don't do that. I said, because if you want me to go there, I said, I will be ghetto in here. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do not.
I have to do it as well to sort in a place.
Colonization.
Not be nice, but to declare that this is, these rules of engagement, and if it's going to be that way, then I'm going to call you on it every single time.
That's what
I got you. So I see we have a new participant in the group. I want to open up the question, open up the space to other participants. And I would say, if you go into the more section, tap the screen, and then tap on more, you can raise your hand. If you raise your hand, if your mic needs to be unmuted, somebody will unmute your mic to engage. And so the question that's been thrown out is, what does pride is colonization mean to you? Another question I want to throw out is, when do you feel most free in your country and in your community? I think Natino spoken to personal experience. What do you do to decolonize the spaces you go in, or to make them fair, right? Or to make them more safe for other people? So those are some of the options I want to throw out there. Or feel free to give us examples you may have of policing our bodies, right? And tone policing, because our voice is one of the most powerful parts of our bodies, right? Any experiences you may have or recall, the ways that we police the bodies of bisexual, pansexual, and asexual people.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Policing the bodies of people, especially when it comes to the lesbian community, the policing of bodies that they feel that lesbian women should not have children, or masculine presenting lesbian women should not have children. Like, okay, we do this in our own communities by policing our own friends. We police our own communities, and that's a part of colonization. They put us into this binary box, or in this bull box, because you're a, in quote, dyke, which is a derogatory term. You should not have a child. But again, what are you doing? You're policing the body of that individual. It is a human right for reproduction. Some people don't want to reproduce, and some people want to reproduce. But because they identify as lesbian or bisexual, to them, it's an issue. In our community, we shame them. Oh, look at she's supposed to be dyke and masculine man, and she's pregnant. So these are some of the things we have to start talking within our own community and liberating our own community and letting them know it's okay to be free, to be who you are. If you choose to have a baby, that's on you. Not because you're masculine presenting or whatever, you shouldn't, but those are some of the things that we have within our own communities that we need to start to deal with.
So I can tell you of several instances. So now I'm committed, so I've done a lot of extensive thinking about how to do this, right? So one of the things, like, I do this because even though it's exhausting, I do it. I call them out every single time. Ask Ide, right? We've been in several instances when they would say some xenophobic stuff, some homophobic stuff, some sexist stuff. I say, no, that's sexist. That's homophobic. That's xenophobic. And I call them out every single time. And in that way, they start to develop an awareness. Let me tell you a couple instances. So I never really was interested in going to some of these UB parties, but when I started to get more invested in the governmental side of the student thing, I went to the parties and asked Ide. So when there was the first time me and Ide went to the UB Lit, they was playing from TOK song from them. I think it's either TOK or the next one, which you got. Would they try to drag you in the papers for? oh God, it escapes me right now. I can't remember the name of it. But you know the song. When you
In
talk
the Boom
about
Bye Bye song.
yes, yes. But it may have been TOK, but I remember hearing from the radio. It's like if you know you and your friends ain't gay, or you know anybody in your crew like mine. It was Boom Bye Bye, right? So yeah, they say if you know you anybody in your crew like mine, bust 2 shots in the air. So I looked at Ide. Ide looked at me. So it's like, okay. I wrote about it. I took it to the various peoples, and I said, y'all need to fix this. Every year after that I was there, I went to the parties. And when they played it, let me tell you, ask Ide, they was, when I was in there and I heard it playing because I was getting some drinks, they ran to the DJ to tell him stop because they they was like, they was clamoring just like Natino. Like, we're sorry, we told him because they had warned him before, but sometimes I guess, they got hyped up. I wasn't playing with them. No. When I walk in the place, you respect everything about me.
Even in our clubs, our LGBTI clubs, I started making very vocal noise about that. Like, why are we as club owners allowing cisgendered, heterosexual, sometimes bisexual DJs to play these types of songs that perpetuate violence in our community? But again, it goes back to our community. The perception of the community is that it's just a song. And for them to internalize that and say it's just a song, they like the beat and they start beating on the wall, it shows that we have an internal issue within our own community, internalizing violence and recognizing violence. Because again, that same songs would perpetrated violence in those persons in Jamaica and our brothers and our sisters. So why do we continue as community members to go along with the status quo? Oh, it's just a song and we just like the beat. I mean, we're conforming to the heteronormative language and the heteronormative way of how we should be as human beings, as LGBTI people. Our queerness is being stripped away piece by piece by piece, piece by piece by piece.
Listen, from 2001, 2002, when we held Pride events, the club Jays were livid with us because we dare say we don't want any negative, LGBT negative songs played. That we understand their popularity, we understand, you can be playing the rhythm, and then that song will come up, right? And feel like people are gonna expect it, but this for particular reason. And the first year the Jay, practically ignored us. In the second year, it was even, well, the first year we had queer DJ, but they acted like, I was shocked that a queer DJ would do that, right? At a private event. And so I had to say, hey, let's make this explicit in the contract. And they did it anyway. And we had to tell, look, we'll shut party down, right? And we said that we shut the party down if you continue to play that music. And somebody from the community, right? And I think he was able to rationalize it. Okay, y'all are privileged, light skin and white, greedy white big men. You privileged, you little upper, you upper middle class, and you feel like you know better than the rest of us know. But people love this song; they don't care. It was real challenge. And then in the most recent Bourgeois discussion, a woman Jay said to me that it doesn't bother her because she's not a man, she's not a bad boy, she's she's a woman, and so and she may queer, but she ain't no man. That ain't who talking about. Right. She ain't gonna shoot her. And I was like,
I wonder if this is the same.
Stunned. I mean, that's the first time I was stunned by the response.
Yes, the lesbian community said, "Oh, they talking about the boys. They ain't talking about us."
See, but watch
that's
this.
Exactly what that's exactly what it was.
See, but again, I've had issues where someone said to me when I was addressing an issue in the university group, they were laughing up with the people that were making little gestures or making jeers towards me. So I addressed the comment that they had made, and I said, you sitting up here laughing. I said, but these people don't like you. They don't know nothing about your struggle. I said, and yet here I am fighting for you, and you're here giggling, laughing. So they said to me, they said, right church, wrong pew. So I said to them, I said, the fact that you could even think this the wrong pew lets me know that you have no clue what's going on. But and my whole thing is, I'm not mad at them, right? But when I see them, let me tell you what I did. There's a particular DJ, I don't know if you're talking about this particular DJ. She did that one time. And only because I didn't get a chance to talk to her. But I had made up in my mind that the next time I see her, I'm going to confront. You must confront them. Confront them. When they play that, ask them. So I've been to several, I haven't been to a lot, right? But if a friend of mine who normally goes, right, like if I go anywhere and that particular song comes on, I sometimes have to remember that because I literally unless I'm really in the mood or having, like, if I've already had a couple drinks, that would be the only reason why I wouldn't go up, right? But and even then I walk outside because I don't want to deal with that. And I don't think that should be happening in our spaces. And watch this. I think that we have to,
right.
It
got to the point in the club whenever that song played, everybody look at me like, oh, there she go. And I walked to that DJ, I said, okay, and then they understand. I remember going to Cozy Corner one time, and the DJ, like, he wanted to wear up. I said, oh, no. I said, do you understand who you're playing for? And at the end of the night, Cozy Corner may be paying your check, but do you know the patrons in here? Do you understand who you're serving on a Thursday night? So again, like you say, you must confront them. Some of them very aggressive, though.
Listen to me. And guess what? If they get mad, that's fine. Listen, and I can be honest with you. Now, some people will be like, well, I'm putting my life in danger. Listen to me. If you're getting ready to kill me over a song, then listen, I'm a bit like, and Ide always like,
your life is already in danger.
Listen, that's my thing. What else can you do to me? I live in a country that oppresses me, that won't even consider me in the Constitution. You really think you killing me can make a difference?
You get it.
If I could, let me just go to the comments for a second. Go on, Alexus.
I'm going to unmute Carissa so she can give that comment. Go ahead, Carissa.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Unmute your mic, Carissa.
Hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Good night. No, I'm saying that most of the people in our community know of these songs being disrespectful and unscrupulous, if I may say. But we as the community, we find ourselves slamming up on the wall, slapping the stage, putting gun finger signs in the air, as if we don't understand the message behind the song. It's like, it's so stupid, if I may, that we do these things. We know the song is disrespectful. We know it's being geared and slandered towards us as whatever it is, but then we're promoting it. It's like, it's now a culture for us.
Again,
and for every party it has happened to.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to our community not knowing their worth. That's why it's so important now to have these sessions. And to be honest with you, y'all might think I'm going to be crazy by saying this. Some of our community members just don't know. They have no idea. They have no idea of what environment they're in, the culture that they're created in. Again, like Natino said, we're already not a part of a constitution. What else you gonna do to me? The only thing left for you to do is kill me. And again, that's why when it comes to my advocacy, I've already made up in my mind to die. If I have to die, then so be it. And when you've reached that plateau and that peace within yourself for your advocacy, there's nothing nobody can say or do to you, because you've already made that peace within your own self, because again, you're trying to survive and live.
That's it. Like, honestly, so I've seen instances. So I remember, so Alexus, I don't know if you remember the time when we first went on oh god, Empress Free show, right? I remember sitting in a car. I think that was the first time I'd ever attended the Halloween party. So I was going in the car with a friend, and they were talking about it. I was just sitting in the back seat, just listening. And then the individual who was a friend of a friend, it was like, I don't know why they said they were at work and they was having the conversation. It's like, I don't know why they keep bringing this up and we just trying to live like, and whatever the case may be. So I sat there and I said, you know what? Should I just because it infuriated me. And I said, the person who was sitting in the car had been hospitalized because the people through their corner had beat them up because they they were like there's be too much sissy activities be going on. They've been hospitalized twice.
My God.
And I'm saying to myself,
the visibility.
yeah. So they said that they were walking home on two separate occasions, and the dudes would congregate where they get off from the bus, and they have to walk past them, and they just beat him up and took like his stuff, and he had to end up. I think they may have stabbed him or did something to him the first time, like they were offended by him being quote unquote, I guess, too flamboyant, right? And I said to him, I said, you want to understand why we're talking about this? I sat there. Listen, we didn't move out that car until I was done with him, until he understood. Because you were not about to go and dance and don't get this. I said, we out here. I said, you've already been hospitalized. I said, the next time could be your last. This is why we're fighting. I said, if you don't understand that, I said, I need you to think, right? You should be able to love and exist in this space whoever you want, however you want. But yet, people are constantly, because they're afraid of who they are on the inside, displacing that anger and that confusion and that internalized homophobia and heterosexism onto you. And yet you want to know, I said, that was me. I was one of the persons. And I said, it will not stop. And I said, now you could either choose, either you could join or you could continue doing what you're doing. I said, but this training ain't stopping, because for too long, we have been silent. For too long, we've just, we didn't want to ruffle any feathers. No. Listen, if I'm going to be all that I am, then I have to embrace every part of me. Even the parts that I thought weren't good or weren't pretty enough to be shown to everyone or be accepted by me. Right? So I have to deal with me. The reckoning first has to start with you, within you. And when the reckoning is painful, yes, but this is why we need psychologists. And this is another thing, even down to, there was a particular popular psychologist who inbox I fly into. And I told him, I said, listen, you be talking some garbage. I said, I know you have queer clientele. I said, on the chance that you telling them this garbage, cease and desist. No, that's not how it works. And I said, it's clear that you don't understand, but you got a master's degree. So here's what I will do. If I need to come in your chat every time I see you post something stupid on Facebook, I will do that. Because what you will not do is post sexist, heterosexist, and homophobic stuff, guys, in this respectability politics, and then force the clientele who come to you, who are queer, to live by these foolish guys, and then our community has to deal with the repercussions of their ignorant actions. I'm not dealing with that. No, you need to take a course in queer psychology. You got a master's degree, but this ain't it. I told him that. This ain't it. You may have a master's degree. I may not have that. I say, but this ain't it. That's not it. And that's what you have to do. You have to challenge it. You have to confront it. And they ask Ide, the narrative is, I combative. I always got something to say. I'm angry. I'm this, I'm that. Yeah. I'm all of those things. What? You have to. And I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, because I don't like that, because it's obviously it's misinformation, but I can't help how you, if you feel that way because I'm challenging your status quo, then that's a good thing. Then I need you to be bothered. I need you to be packed like a suitcase, because I'm not dealing with it. I'm not taking that. I'm done. I'm done hiding. I'm done shrinking or not being smart or not being or not being too smart so I don't overshadow you. I'm not doing that no more. You get in the fullness of who I am, and if you feel some type of way, you can feel that type of way because I've had to deal with it, and as I've dealt with it, I've become more comfortable. It's been uncomfortable, but as I embrace all of these aspects of who I am, I learn more and more about myself. And so the truth of the matter is that Pride is decolonization, what we're calling for, it's gonna challenge the LGBTQ community first. That's what we're challenging first, because we need to get our act together, right? And this, watch this, the narratives that they talk about, oh, what about queer or LGBTQ on LGBTQ violence? Listen, don't even buy into that rhetoric. That's dumbness. It's the same, it's like using the same, oh, what about black on black violence? Like, what about it? What about it? Like, I'm not entertaining that. Like, these are the like narratives that we are forced to come in. Like, no, we have to address them. Listen, we know we have issues. We do. We know that there are issues, but we're trying to address them. And Pride as decolonization, using that to break the mold, to challenge the definition of family, to challenge the definition of sexuality, to challenge the definition of sex, to challenge gender expression, to challenge the gender norms. That is what this work entails. And it's gonna be it's gonna start up very slow. But when we get momentum, it's gonna move quickly. And so this is why, because I think you also talked about something I think I just want to go back to. I think you were talking about how the advocacy, sometimes police. Listen, my whole idea is to have other people. I don't need to be the one in the forefront all the time. The more people we have at the forefront, the less I have to be saying things. That way the community can get other experiences heard. You can get other transgendered, other lesbian experiences that are not only my experience. This is watch this. We ain't hogging no mics here. If you want the mic is yours. I just need you to want it. We give you it. I just need you to come for it. Listen, this is not about like me being at the forefront. No, we just need people. And watch this. It may not be a large group of people, but those people who are ready and willing to do it, you can have the mic. Listen, I don't have no problem with that. Listen, ain't nobody hogging no mic here. And if that's your plan, I gotta burst the bubble because I ain't got time for it. We want progress. We want a better future. We want quality lives. We want quality living standards. We want representation. We want that in legislation. Like, we want to be included.
So
yeah.
let me say we are about 7 minutes away from the hour mark, right? And I want to insert into the discourse this idea that decolonization is an extremely long, complex process, right? And that that it may not be fulfilled in our lifetimes, right? And we may leave this earth without fully ridding ourselves of these ideas that were embedded in our psyche, embedded in our genetics, if you believe those things, right? That we inherit trauma from our mothers. But I hear your passion, and I feel a little excited, right? When you talk about moving so, that we're moving slowly, and hopefully, we will gain momentum. And I think about, the work that I did, and the work that I did with RAB, and that I did as an individual advocate. And then, and then in that space, I think about how there were people in work before me, right? Like Hope Through Education and Awareness, it's called Hope Tea, right? And how Dr. Mel Saunders was a public advocate in the 80s going to the 90s, around the law, the sexual offenses, the Creation of Sexual Offenses Act, and 1991, 92 Domestic Violence and Sex Offenses Act, right? And that to remind myself that even if I was unaware of their work, that that work must have taken place, right? Like people must have been doing things, and is it not that we have not gained momentum because we don't engage the poor, the accessibility early enough? But maybe it is that we had not gained momentum, visibility, because it wasn't that time yet, right? And that maybe now is the time for increased visibility. But with that comes the idea that maybe now is the time because you're ready, right? Like because you, Natino, are ready, and you, Ide, are ready, and you, Alexus, are ready, right? And that other people are ready to be visible in a way that can list to greater critical mass, but that wasn't wasn't processed by then, right? That 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 maybe to have that expectation and saying that you did, or to frame in that sense is problematic, and that we give ourselves the space to be to be where we need to be, where we need to be, right? And not judge ourselves because maybe we weren't ready for this level of visibility then. Maybe that wasn't what the universe needed or wanted. That's not what movement could handle. Maybe the movement couldn't handle that much visibility all in time then, right? Because I'll tell you, when I was when I was a kid, and around the time that the other public people left, that's when I got linked carry flags, right? And this sort of regional movement. But Bahamians weren't ready for that. And I don't know if queer Bahamians were ready to identify with a regional movement, right? They wanted their liberation to be an American or a British, a global north, right? It's a global north imagining of the movement should be like. But guess what? At that time, the only funding and organizational stuff that's available is through the Caribbean. And when I did the 2014 ILP U.S. State Department program, where a group of Korean advocates went and met with organizations throughout the state, right? What we found actually, none of the organizations we met were geared towards working with organizations in other countries, right? And this was supposed to be like the place. Like this is a U.S. department, so they're aware of all of the organizations that have capacity functioning, but they did not have capacity. The way their organization constructed, they were not able to interact formally, in terms of funding with non-U.S. Organizations, and some of that had to do with the taxation system and the way that worked, right? And so, I realized that was the time for that type of that, Bahamas to global north, and that we needed to focus on Bahamas and Caribbean. But the vast majority of people around me were not interested in any discussion that was about a movement with the region or movement in the region or anything that would identify them as Korean. But now, fast forward 60 years, now people are more willing to identify, are more open to that Caribbean identity and working within the region. And so like the number of young men and women that into CWSD so far, I was shocked, right? Because I opened up and sent out the application to other people and they never responded. But now more and more people are engaged, you know. And so I think a part of it is sort of being not content, but understanding that we're a part of a larger movement, right? Like a large movement that when we're then gone, this movement will still be advancing, and that what's important is that we have, you know, we have the audacity to do as much as we can, um, and the imagination to construct things that we not only did not ever see before, but we never be a part of, right? Um, and that, you know, the movement is larger than our own concept of time, and we have to be able to locate ourselves in psychologically and spiritually in a way where we don't feel drained or destroyed because we didn't accomplish certain things in our timeline, right? And so I know that was a whole bunch, but you know, I wanted to throw that out there that it's you know, it's the audacity to know that you can imagine the future for the people, for the younger people, for the people who haven't been born yet, right? And the the the, the pure audacity, and then the empathy required to do it in a way that is both loving, but that it really strives to meet needs of these people. And, you know, for me, pride is, you know, this process of decolonization. Pride is decolonization is a lot about that. It's about the audacity to, you know, the audacity to imagine, and the power of imagination, and that we can, like Natino say, this experience, he know it, boy. He know we could be free. We are free already, even though you don't feel it. I telling you, by putting your hand in my hand, you are already experiencing freedom, right? And you're already a part of now the sort of alchemy process of freedom in the future, sustained freedom, right? Okay, so I did say a whole lot just now, and we are just at 10 o'clock. And 2 hours is good. My co-host, I would
Yes,
like to ask.
we're out of,
Yes.
yeah, we are out of time, but I do want to mention this next week, Thursday, we will continue the conversation on visibility. That will be our topic, and I want us to put a pin, Natina, if you can copy this comment in the chat box by Carissa, where it says, we in the community need to start listening to ourselves. Time after time, Zoom meetings, health seminars, testings are spoken about and blasted through groups and social media for us to educate ourselves and come together as a community. Yet when it comes to crunch time, we don't want to be a part of it, or we turn a blind eye and ignore ourselves. Persons in our community try to do whatever we can to assist us, but how much of our community actually wants to be present, wants to listen, wants to make a change and stand united? What is stopping us from building us, educating us, helping us, and uniting us? We will talk about this next week, Thursday. The topic will be visibility, and we will start off with this actual conversation. So I want you to invite your community, invite your friends, even if you want to put them in a little group together, because the challenge here too is most of them don't have access to Zoom. They're using their phone, so they don't have the data, they don't have the resources. But what we're going to do, there's a way our technician says that we can go live on Facebook. So next week, Thursday, we will go live on Facebook through the Zoom app. So they will be able to participate. Because of the Zoom challenges, most of the community can't participate, but through Zoom and the live app on Bahamas Pride's page. And also we now have our YouTube page, which this will be uploaded on, so they can go back and listen to the information. But next week, we will talk about visibility for our community, and starting off with the same conversation. So technician, can you just copy this question and comment, and this will be our thing to start off with next week, Thursday.
Yep, I have it already.
Every Thursday.
And
Thank
so
you.
does Ideal. So everybody should have it saved.
Okay.
All
So
right.
every Thursday up to Pride, we'll be having these conversations, and we'll be talking about visibility next week. So I've done the first two topics, which was decolonization and visibility. Committee, I'm going to leave you to deal with the next two topics, okay? To decide what our next two topics will be. But I do want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Any closing remarks?
I just want to say, like, I know a lot of what I talked about can seem a little bit far-fetched. And again, I may have privilege to some degree, a lot of, you know, depending on where you stand in your social setting or social position. But I, honestly, like, I don't know what else to do except to be the person that I am. And when it comes down to connecting with, I honestly feel like this is a great moment. I don't know where it's gonna take us, but I think, again, like we've been talking about, Erin, the universe is doing something. I'm really excited about this. Like we've put together, we tried to put together something nice, wonderful, so that all of us could learn, right? We've incorporated people from the first and second iteration of Pride, and what we're trying to do is bring everyone together because this is a momentous occasion, right? This is the pushing us forward. This is the moving of those wheels. Yeah, this is all of that. And I really think, like, when I was hearing Erin talk about not being, you know what, I'm really glad that that Erin and all those other people who were there before and who did the work before are now a part of this, because they get to tell us about all of that stuff that they did back then. They get to pass that on, and so that we can hopefully use that in the future, as well as continue the legacy of what they've already done, right? To be honest with you, the only person that I remember growing up to, and even though I was reckoning with my own self, I remember Erin. I remember, and I've told her this, like, personally, like, I remember her. And I knew that somehow, some way, I wanted to be as free and authentic as possible. What form or shape that would have taken, I did not know. How long it would have taken, it took me some years. But when you get to that point and you embrace all of those parts of you, I think, like I said, like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, whenever you make a decision, the universe conspires to make the decision happen. So I'm believing that we made a decision, that the universe is now conspiring to do some things, and we may not get it all done, as Erin said. We may not see all of it in our lifetime, but we can get some things done, and that's just what I'm proud of. All right.
All
So yeah.
right.
So see you guys.
Thank everybody for joining us. See you next week, Thursday. Please pay attention to our social media pages. Pride page, we now have a YouTube channel. We'll be talking information from our YouTube channel. We have a Twitter now. We have a Instagram, all of the young people's social media stuff. So there's no excuse where community members can say, oh, we didn't know about this information. So we're gonna start feeding these type of information on our pages so they can understand where we're coming from and what we're talking about. So they can have an understanding and appreciation of why it's necessary for Pride Bahamas. So once again, thank you for your time. We are over by 9 minutes. It's a great 2-hour session. Thank you so much, Erin, for that great talk on decolonization and breaking it down for our understanding. Thank you to everybody, Natino, Ide, Karissa, all those that joined the live. Good night.
Good night.